Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Toastmasters Spring Contest for Area 61 and 62. My name is Dave Anderson. I will be the contest master for tonight. I will be your MC for the evening. Tonight we have the evaluation contest and the international contest. I will explain the details for both of these as we go along. First of all, I'd like to read the Toastmasters Club mission statement, to give you a little idea of what Toastmasters is all about. The mission of a Toastmasters Club is to provide a mutually supportive and positive learning environment in which every member has the opportunity to develop communication and leadership skills, which in turn foster self-confidence and personal growth. The first part of the evening is going to be the evaluation contest. At this point, I would like to bring the target speaker up to give a sample speech for the evaluation. Our target speaker tonight, would you come up, please? Give her a hand. And what is your name again?
Dr. Cynthia Zates.
Dr. Cynthia Zates.
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 Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. Thanks. That was nice. That was friendly. I like that. My name is Dr. Cynthia Zates. I am an ALB, ACS, that's what I've written on my hand, because I always forget. And I've been in Toastmasters for a while. I really appreciate the opportunities that we get to challenge ourselves and to make brave choices. My choice on my way here today was to give you an impromptu speech. I'm going to start with a quote. It is not our abilities that make us who we are. It is our choices. I'm going to say that again because I really like this quote. It is not our abilities that make us who we are. It is our choices. Anybody know who that comes from? Dumbledore. Yes! Professor Dumbledore. I was thinking about this today and how choices that I had made when I was 11, 12, 20, 40 changed my life today. How those choices present themselves in my world today. And I decided to work with another quote as well. And I'm sure some of you will know who said this. The unexamined life, what's the rest of it?
Isn't worth living. Socrates.
Yes, beautiful. Is not worth living. And Socrates was really focused on friendship and community. Those two were really important to him. I looked back at my life and I thought about my early years and some of the struggles that I had and how I was able to work my way through those. I came out of violence. I came out of highly intelligent, creative, dysfunctional family unit. And in that family unit, it was crumble and wither or find a way to express myself and find myself. I turned to music, poetry, artwork, and those things have shown up as challenges and cliffs to jump off of and incredibly enriching, rewarding experiences throughout my life. In my 20s, I moved to LA and decided to become a famous actress. And yes, how did that work out for you? I've put my heart and my soul into it. And it was a wild time back then, the 80s. A wild time. People were doing all kinds of weird and crazy things. And none of it was on YouTube, which means that those of us of my generation got away with a lot more than the generation today can get away with. The choices that I made as a child were driven by desperation, a need to survive. I needed music. I needed poetry. I needed them as friends. I needed them to combat the loneliness, to build a wall around me that was protective and nurturing because my environment did not provide that. Being a professional musician, seeing my name in lights up in Vegas on the Strip, pretty exciting. A few really interesting things happened. A lot of wildness. I survived it. And then at a point in my life, a change took place. I became a very different person. I was no longer interested in the same things. Music presented itself to me now as a means to connect, like Socrates, to invest in community, in friendships. And I'm a teacher now. I teach music, I teach theater, I teach English. I teach the things that I needed so desperately to survive with. And today, the gifts that I was given, the gifts that I grabbed as a youngster, allow me to connect with youngsters who have to go through the same impossible years. How many of you enjoyed middle school? Show of hands. Really? Wow. How many of you really, really hated middle school? Yeah, more hands up. Challenging. Your body is changing, your brain is changing. It's a really difficult time. Your emotions are all over the place. So giving my students something to hold on to, a way that they can perhaps find themselves, maybe even build a protective wall around themselves in their environment, is the way that a choice made as a child has presented now as an adult. The unexamined life is not worth living. Socrates said that. He believed in friendship and building communities. It's not our abilities that make us who we are. It's our choices. Professor Dumbledore, magic man. This is really good advice. And those are the thoughts that I'm giving to you, my evaluators, to nitpick, that's not the right word. The word I'm really looking for is offer me constructive criticism, which I will be very happy to hear. Thank you very much for your time and your attention.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. At this point, I would like the Sergeant-at-Arms to escort our contestants out of the room. They'll have 5 minutes to write down their notes on Cynthia's speech. If they liked, perhaps things that they could be changed. After 5 minutes, they will be escorted back in one at a time, and you will hear their evaluations of Cynthia's speech. Our next contestant is Anthony Giacomoni. Anthony Giacomoni.
Thank you, Mr. Contest Chair. Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, and of course our speaker, Cynthia. I like how you use questions throughout your speech to engage the audience, especially at the beginning. You immediately asked us who the quote was referred to and immediately brought us into your speech and got us thinking about who that quote came from and where we had heard it from in our lives. Two other things I particularly liked about your speech. You had great use of body movement and gestures and eye contact, which you maintained with the audience throughout the entire speech. Thought that really helped you connect with the audience throughout the entire speech and helped keep my attention throughout your entire speech for sure. The other thing I really liked about your speech was your use of anecdotes and stories. As we all know from our experience in Toastmasters, stories are the best way to make your speeches memorable. And using stories about your past with music and your trip to LA really helped solidify and remember the main points of your speech. Now, I think there are two ways you could have made your speech even better. One, at the beginning, your introduction. There wasn't really a definitive opening to your speech. I was a little confused when you had actually started your speech. There was a little bit of introduction, but there was sort of a gap between when you actually delivered that question to the audience, which I thought was really the stronger opening. So maybe if you just paused and began with that question, I think it would have been a much stronger beginning. The second recommendation I have is you had a lot of quotes that you used, and while they were very intriguing, at times I was a little confused thinking how they all related to your message. So my recommendation would be try to simplify a little bit your message and really try to focus it so the audience doesn't get off track. As Da Vinci said, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. So try to really focus your speech and have a much bigger impact in the audience. So overall, I liked how you used questions to engage the audience, great gestures and eye contact, and great use of stories. On your next speech, try to have a more definitive opening, and also try to simplify your message. But overall, great job, and I look forward to your next speech. Mr. Contest Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Anthony. At this point, let's bring in the next contestant. Our next contestant is Janet McKenna Lowry. Janet McKenna Lowry, come on up.
Hello. I very much enjoyed Dr. Zaitz' speech performance. It was incredibly difficult to try to think of ways in which to improve it, partly because it was done impromptu and was very impressive off the cuff. I enjoyed the fact that she was so very comfortable on stage, and when she mentioned that she was an actress, I was not at all surprised, and a performer. I was not at all surprised. She was extremely comfortable on stage, extremely comfortable talking to the audience, very, very good at engaging. She not only asked questions and got responses from people, but looked out and talked to people sort of individually, looked around. Diction, excellent. Gestures, very friendly, very, very nice. A little bit of a tendency to fist up on occasion, and I thought, well, you're not angry? I'm not really sure why, and I think it has to do with intensity of feeling, and I think it has to do with sort of emphasis, but I also thought, well, I'm not really sure why the fists are coming in here. and that's small, but it was there. Intonation was beautiful and very flowing and very musical. Since I do have to think of some ways in which to improve it, the things that I was thinking of were, one was, and I'm always asking people to do this, a little more ownership of the space. You did move a little bit side to side, didn't move back and front. That is difficult here. We are being filmed and you don't want to disappear. And it's also fairly unusual for us to work on this kind of stage. But even though you're very good at talking to other parts of the audience, there could have been a little bit more moving around as you spoke to people, a little bit of depth, a little bit of more natural movement. When you thought of it, you did. When you didn't, then you kind of stayed put. I would have liked, and this is more the place where I sort of found a few things that I wanted to see more. And again, impromptu speech. So please keep that in mind as I talk. And that was structure. There were lots of really interesting generalizations. I wanted to hear a little more detail. I wanted to hear about the choice that was made, the choice that would have been made differently had you known what you knew. Little stories that end up making you realize what the bigger point is. And lastly, I would have liked to have seen a tight little summary of the journey. That here is where you get to. Again, very difficult to do, particularly impromptu, and particularly in a very short speech. Just maybe coming in, have that ending bit in place. That's something that I've been trying to learn from Toastmasters, is that little bit at the end that makes you say, so here's how I got back around to the beginning, only now I'm a little wiser. Only now I can tell you some other ways that you can learn from my experience. It's kind of it's almost a stereotypical Toastmasters thing, is to learn how to do that and then to learn to get back around to why we're here or what we all learned from it. Thank you.
Area 62, the contestant is Lu Jiang. Lu Jiang.
Thank you. Thank you, Contest Master. Good evening, my fellow Toastmasters and guests. Before I make the evaluation, I have to make a confession, share my dark secret. Every time I evaluate somebody, I wish, God, that speaker made some mistake so I can pick up some topics to talk about. But today I have to tell you, I'm very disappointed. Cecilia, you did a wonderful job. I like the opening you have. You know, starting with a quote, get their attention from the audience, and then interact with the audience. That's a good start. You have good body language, and use your gestures, and you also have good vocal varieties. The voice, the tone that you use is very good. Because you are asking us about criticize your speech for future improvement. So I'm going to give you some advice from my perspective, at least what I think it will help you to improve your speech in the future. One thing I recommend to you is you can work more on your voice and the way you speak to get more attention. It's like storytelling. When you tell a story, you know, build the connection with the audience more. So keep that in mind. The other thing is you talk about the choice and the ability, and you also share your early life as an actress and a musician. I hope it would be better if you could elaborate more, give us more details how the choice makes the difference instead of the ability. I think that back to my point about storytelling, that if you can work on the stories and share one or two stories with details, that will be very helpful. And you mentioned this is impromptu speaking, but I cannot tell. So, job well done. I hope to see you again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The purpose of the international contest is, number one, to provide an opportunity for speakers to improve their speaking skills and to recognize the best as encouragement for all. Number two, to provide an opportunity to learn by observing the more proficient speakers who have benefited from their Toastmasters training. At this point, I'm going to ask our first contestant up, Jamarcus Winbush. What's the title of your speech?
Unstoppable.
Unstoppable. Jamarcus Winbush.
What if, in spite of the bumps, the bruises, all the disappointment in life, you kept going? And what if, instead of focusing on the negative things, you focused on the things that inspire you, things that make you smile? And what if the most unbearable pain that you've ever felt in your life turned out to be your most triumphant moment? The reason you're here tonight is to hear 3 keys to remind you that you are unstoppable. The first key is acceptance. There are times in life when things won't go your way. Times when you're working a job and a new promotion becomes available. So you begin to work relentlessly, day and night, all with the belief of winning the position, only to hear the announcement and it's not you. Now you come to work negative, angry, and complaining, when all that's truly necessary is for you to accept it. For we all have had things not go our way, things that we wish we could redo, things that we wish we could change, but we can't. It's a part of our past. Perhaps that's why Wendell Holmes wrote the words that things may happen to you and things may happen around you, but all of those things are minor to what happens within you. And embodying those words will keep you in the rhythm of life. And the rhythm of life is to keep going no matter what. The second key is to change your focus. What has happened to you in your life will not determine your destiny, but your decision on what to focus on will. For where focus goes, energy and emotion follows. If you focus on the time your husband hurt you, or your wife hurt you, or when your friend said, you can count on me, and when you needed the most, they didn't show. Or even worse, someone close to you dies. You are only reopening the door to that pain and agony. To change your focus, give yourself better questions. Questions like, who do you love? Who loves you? What are you determined to make of your life? Your past is only as powerful as the weakness of your present. Your biography is not your destiny. The world needs the best of you, and the best of you is on the other side of the bar of pain and fears. So throw your heart over that bar and trust that your mind and body will follow. The third and final key is forgiveness. When someone does something dreadful to you, something hurtful, sometimes it's hard to forgive them. It was hard when I was 16 years old, falsely accused of rape, watching my mother cry as she prayed. Oh, Lord, please don't let them take my baby, Lord. Please don't let them take my baby. It was hard going to the police station, and they questioned me firmly. Young man, did you rape this girl? And I say, no, sir. I'll never do that, sir. I'll never do that. It was hard sitting in my high school classroom, terrified, believing that I'll be arrested in front of my peers, only for the officer to tell my mother that there wasn't enough evidence and they were dropping the case. I went on to college and I fell in love with this beautiful, exquisite young lady, but I couldn't touch her. I couldn't touch her because I was scarred. I couldn't touch her because I was afraid. Then one day, she sat me down and said, Jamarcus, I don't know what happened to you. I don't. But what I do know is it has your hands full. And you'll never be able to grab hold of anything good until you let go. You have to forgive. Just let it go. And I looked at her, tears in my eyes, and I said, it's hard. It's so hard. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to stand before you today and tell you that on that day, I learned to forgive. On that day, I accepted my life. On that day, I focused on how blessed I am. On that day, I became unstoppable. There's nothing I can't do. And if I can be unstoppable, so can you. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next contestant is Jessica Gifford. Name of her speech is Life Sentence. Life Sentence, Jessica Gifford.
Thank you. As fellow Toastmasters, you all know the power of words. When I was 19, a handful of words, one sentence, changed the course of my life. My father had just committed suicide. I was devastated to learn that he suffered with severe depression and paranoid delusions for years. As you can imagine, my family was reeling. We decided to meet with my father's therapist to try to help us understand how this could have happened. The therapist's description opened a door into my father's suffering that was painful to take in. And then, at the end of this conversation, the therapist turned to my brother and me and delivered this sentence. Your father's illness is genetic. There is a 50% chance that each of you will inherit it. I was already in a state of shock, and with these words, I felt I'd been dealt a life sentence. Would I be in the normal 50% or in the 50% that led to extreme emotional suffering and might even end in suicide, as my father's life had? There was no way to find out. There were no tests to take. I would just have to wait to learn my fate. I became afraid of my own thoughts and emotions. Every time I felt down or blue or depressed, I thought, is this it? Is it starting? Every time a remotely paranoid thought crossed my mind, was he just looking at me funny? I thought, is this it? Is it starting? The waiting, the not knowing were unbearable to me. I learned that I do not like uncertainty. Or perhaps it's because of this period of my life that I do not like uncertainty. My friends would tell you that if patience was a virtue, I lack it completely. When faced with a state of limbo, my MO is to take action. And so I dove into a master's program in social work, motivated by my desire to help other people and to help myself. I wanted to understand all that I could about how the human mind works. How do people learn, recover, change, heal? And as I thought about these topics, the way that I thought about that sentence, those words, began to change. Maybe my inheritance was not a predetermined fate. Maybe my inheritance was more like a predisposition or a vulnerability that I could protect myself from, like diabetes. This idea led me to make some different life choices. Instead of cutting back on sugar, I began to seriously cut back on stress. I left behind the sleepless nights and anxiety of my crisis response job, and I moved into the field of wellness. This was better. The threat of mental illness was still out there, but I had some control over it, and I like control. Next, I dove into the field of positive psychology. I liked that it wasn't just about addressing symptoms, but also about building strengths and increasing people's capacity to thrive. I immersed myself. I went to trainings, I read books, and I began to practice every single strategy that had been shown to improve mood and well-being. And they worked. And I incorporated what I was learning into the work that I was doing with clients. This was good. And then I came across the research on brain plasticity, and I realized that by changing my thoughts and my actions, by engaging in all of these new practices, I was literally changing my own brain. I was creating new neural pathways that might even change the way that my genes express themselves. I am no longer afraid of inheriting my father's mental illness. I am in charge of my own mental health, and I plan to protect and nurture it. I can't bring my father back or unhear those words, but I can create my own meaning from that experience. I first heard the therapist's words as a life sentence, and I felt trapped and helpless. But when I changed my perspective, it spurred me to action. Now I choose to use those words as an inspiration to actively promote my own well-being and that of others. This process of creative reinterpretation has led me to my mission, to my life's sentence. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Our next contestant, Edwin Sauce. Lucky, Edwin Sauce.
Thank you. Greetings, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, both here and at home. Lately, my friends have taken to calling me Lucky. And they tease me that if it wasn't for bad luck, I wouldn't have any at all. And I almost got left out of my space in the contest here. This streak of bad luck began on my mother's birthday in 2012. I was sitting at a traffic light in my brand new pre-owned Subaru, and I hear that horrible ee! Bam! Whack. Bad luck. 2 years later, almost to the day, I'm actually on Toastmasters business in New York, driving along, minding my business. My girlfriend's brand new pre-owned Audi. This woman, all of a sudden, is in front of me. Bam! Happens again. Bad luck. Both cars were total losses. Bad luck. Neck and back injuries. Bad luck. I tend to be optimistic, but wouldn't you know, just a couple of weeks ago, I work in a group home, and I'm there early in the morning, and the boss sent me out to get something in a shed attached to the back of the house. I reach for the light, I step on the step, and bam, bam, bam! 4 steps. I am really angry. I had thought I defeated Jack Frost in the worst winter in my memory. I was able to stay upright. And then to get ambushed indoors. As I was lying there at the bottom of the stairs, attempting to take an inventory of the aches and pains, this strange thing happened. This Chinese proverb came to mind. 2 farmers hadn't seen each other in a long time. And one farmer says to the other, "How are you?" The other one says, "My horse ran away." Oh, what horrible luck. Maybe not so horrible. When he came back, he brought a herd of horses, wild horses with him. "You're rich, good luck." Maybe not such good luck. You see, my son was helping me break the horses. He got thrown. He broke his leg. I don't have anyone to help me with the chores. That's horrible. Maybe not so horrible. The warlord, he was coming through and he was conscripting every able-bodied man into the army. My son had a broken leg. He passed him over. You know, good luck, bad luck, who knows? And I start feeling that I didn't hit my head. It hurts like heck, but my neck's okay, I guess, and my back's okay. Oh, but the hip, the bane of old people. But no, it still works. when things like that happen, I'm tempted to make judgments as to whether it's good or bad. I'm, like most people, trying to control things. And I base it on my expectations and the expectations of society. An example of that would be when the state lotteries first came out, and they would get the winners to give a testimonial. My life is wonderful. But all of a sudden, those testimonials disappeared because a lot of people had difficulty with instant wealth. They hadn't learned to deal with it, and they were the worse for winning. I have discovered that the gift of this experience, to me, was a kind of wisdom. I learned that life is not guaranteed. I actually survived 2 head-on collisions and a fall which could have killed or crippled me. It didn't happen. I try now to choose to live my life appreciating and grateful for the people I have in my life that love me and the things I have that make my life better. I suggest, and it's just a suggestion, that old Chinaman had quite a good piece of information. Good luck, bad luck, who knows? Accept what is gracefully and gratefully.
Our next contestant, Lu Jiang, the man. The man, Lu Jiang.
On a cold January morning in 2010, he pulled into a gas station somewhere south of Dallas. He was driving a shiny black Ford F-350 pickup truck. 2 guys approached him with pistols, demanded his money and the key to his truck. With his hands in the air, he told the robbers that, "I just needed to reach out to my truck to get the key." He then turned around, reached out under his winter coat instead. With his right hand, he grabbed his Colt 1911. Pia, pia! He fired 2 shots, hitting the first robber in the chest. He then turned slightly, pia, pia! Hitting the second robber in the chest. All this happened within seconds. Both robbers fell dead. He then leaned on his truck and waited for the police. When the police arrived, they detained him and reviewed the surveillance footage. The officers found that the incident happened just as he described. They let him go eventually. When they ran his driver's license, in addition to name, date of birth, and address, what came up was a phone number at the Department of Defense. At the other end of the line, there was someone explained, "This man is Chris Kyle." Who is Chris Kyle? Ladies and gentlemen, my fellow Toastmasters, contest master, Chris Kyle was the most lethal sniper in U.S. military history, with 160 confirmed kills by Pentagon's counts. By the accounts of his Navy SEAL teammates, the number was closer twice that. Kyle served 4 tours of duty in Iraq. He participated in every major campaign of the war. He earned 2 Silver Stars and 5 Bronze Stars with valor. Kyle's longest confirmed kill was made 2,100 yards away. 2,100 yards. Imagine 21 football field. He was born to be a sniper. He thrived in the moments where required doing complicated maths about the wind speed, the spin of the bullet, and the gravity under the most intense pressure of battle. If this were just about number of kill and shooting skills, I would not stand in front of you. This is not about the number of kill. This is about the lives Kyle saved. The number doesn't tell Kyle's full story. Kyle told people that he wished he could somehow calculate the number of people he saved. I would care the number the most, he said. I would put it everywhere. In Iraq, Kyle provided overwatch for the Marines and the convoys. The enemies he shot were insurgents, suicide attackers, the one who dressed like civilians but held hand grenades walking towards Marines, the one who held RPGs hiding at corners, the ones who threatened his fellow American troops and allies. One day when Kyle was at a tire shop back home in Texas, a young man walked to him and said, "Chris, you saved my life in Iraq." Chris Kyle didn't know he saved that young man. But the young man and the ones who he saved remember him for their whole life. They fought on the front lines for this country. They did what they were commanded to do. They appreciate Chris Kyle. Let them avoid the deaths. Let them live with good life, families, and home in America. This is huge. This is not about kill. This is about save. On February 2nd, 2013, Kyle was shot and killed by Eddie Rouse, who claimed that he has post-traumatic stress disorder. At that time, Kyle and his friend Chad Littlefield brought Rouse to a shooting range in an attempt to help. We don't know why Rouse murdered Kyle and his friend. The fact is, Kyle has left us. What a tragedy. Kyle survived 6 IED attacks, 3 gunshot wounds, 2 helicopter crashes, more surgeries than he could remember. But he did not survive from the bullets shot behind his back. On the day of Chris Kyle's funeral, 7,000 people attended. The funeral procession stretched more than 200 miles. Thousands of people lined up at Interstate 35, filled the streets at overpasses, waved flags, saluted, in wheelchairs and on foot, to pay their final respects to Chris Kyle. Now you tell me who Chris Kyle was. Was he a sniper? Mm-mm. To the world, maybe, he was an American sniper. To his enemies, he was Ashantai, the devil. To himself, he said he was just a regular guy. To his wife and kids, he was a loving husband and a devoted father. To his fellow Navy SEAL teammates, he was a legend. To his country, he was a hero, a warrior, and a patriot. To the men and women he saved, he was a savior. Chris Kyle, he is the man. Back to you, Contest Master.
Thank you, Lou. Our next contestant is Diane Chambers. When one door opens. When one door opens, Diane Chambers.
that was the sound of my heart breaking the day they told me I was demoted. My family and friends tried to console me with sayings like, when one door closes, another door opens. Didn't they know? My dreams had been shattered. I took no comfort in their words. Tonight, fellow Toastmasters and guests, I'm going to tell you that those trite statements are actually justified. I was on top of the world. I was young, I was single, and I had just been transferred to the job of my dreams, project engineer. A job I had aspired to and worked for 5 years. To get the job and get transferred, I had to drop a class and drop out of school mid-semester. I had to sell my house. I had to uproot from my support group and friends and move 250 miles. I really wanted that job. 2 weeks into my new job, I was summoned to the Human Resource Department. I was met by 3 middle-aged senior leaders who invited me to sit down in the low chair in a position of weakness. They leaned or sat on the one single table in the office in positions of strength. And they told me that my department had been eliminated. My boss had been let go, as well as most of the people in my department. They were able to secure a job for me in quality assurance, and even though it was a demotion to speak of, they would allow me to keep the same salary. Quality assurance? Quality assurance? I didn't do what I just did to be a quality assurance inspector. Apparently, the dismay showed on my face, for my soon-to-be new manager gave me some advice in the very kind and grandfatherly voice. The cruelest words I may have ever heard spoken. You do know you were hired only as a token, a sign of good faith between our company and your smaller little company. If you are not happy with the situation, of course you can leave. Leave? I can't leave. I have to have a job. I have to have income. Off to quality assurance I went. From the moment I stepped in the door of quality assurance, I discovered I loved it. The people welcomed me with open arms, not like the manager. There were several other young professionals as myself. They invited me into their social circle at work and outside of work, which really helped me adapt to my new area. I also found that I loved quality assurance. I got to go out on the production line and do my inspecting. They manufactured cleaning products like shampoo, so I got to learn all about the bottle. I got to learn all about the shampoo that goes in the bottle. I got to learn about the caps and how they get screwed on the bottle. I developed a wonderful rapport with all of the plant workers. In 5 months, I got called up to be the lone project engineer. My heart was dancing, of course. Yet I was a little apprehensive because there was no group there with me. I was the lone project engineer, no mentor for me. It didn't take me long to realize I was coming up with solutions quicker and better than my predecessors had. And I attribute that to my time served in quality assurance. I am proof positive that if life's plans don't go as planned, there are better days ahead. I learned a valuable lesson that year, that if your roadmap hits a roadblock, take advantages of the opportunities that detour provides. If you do that, you are going to be on track to outshine your earlier expectations. And yes, I have had many disappointments since that time, but my heart no longer cries. In fact, it sings me a little tune, a Rolling Stones song. You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you just might find you get what you need. Thank you.
Let's get the Chief Judge back up on stage and announce the winners. Thank you.
In the Area 61 evaluation contest, our runner-up is Janet McKenna Lowry.
Yay. Jerry, come on up. Yes, come on up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. And our winner is Anthony Giacomi.
Very good. Congratulations.
In the Area 62 evaluation contest, our winner is Lu Chang.
Congratulations. Hold this.
In the Area 61 evaluation international contest, our third place winner is Louise Alberti.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Our runner-up is Jamarcus Winbush.
Congratulations.
And our winner is Jessica Gifford.
Ah. Congratulations.
Area 62 International, our runner-up is Diane Chambers.
Congratulations.
And our winner is Wu Chang. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming. This concludes the contest.